A 62-year-old emailed us, one of our Patreon supporters, and asked the question, I'm 62 years old with $1.1 million saved. What does my retirement budget really look like? Well, we're going to answer that for him today.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Doug the Retirement Guy, and today we're going to go back to basics. We're going back to how I started this channel originally, because I got an email from a Patreon supporter. His name is Mark, and sent me this email, and I thought it was really interesting. So I wanted to share with you. I approved it with him to make sure we could. And I think a lot of people are going to relate to this question. And I know honestly, I've had two family members in the same boat because both of them are retiring right now. Their numbers are going to be different, but they're retiring and asking the same exact question. He's 62 years old. He has $1.1 million saved in his 401k and IRA together. He collects about $2,800 in Social Security. And his question to me was very simple but powerful. What does his retirement budget actually look like? So I started thinking about this and I said, okay, today we're going to build this step by step using an income focused ETFs like SPYI and QQQI and IWMY. And I'll show you what kind of real world monthly income this portfolio can reasonably support. It's going to be hypothetical because this is going to be for educational. This is not going to be financial advice. This is going to be more of an educational retirement time frame of how to put something together. So I gave Mark an answer. I'm going to show you what we gave him and see if it fits. You guys tell me if to judge. Am I right, wrong, or indifferent? Let's get into today's video.
Guys, so important notice to everybody, this presentation was designed and provided to you by an educational purposes only and is not constituted financial advice. Educational purpose, no financial advice. Distributions are not guaranteed. The yields are subject to change without notice. And if you need any professional help, if you need questions on the financial stuff, always contact a financial professional. Don't just watch a YouTube video. Don't just ask someone who sounds like they're intelligent with it. Always ask a professional first. So let's give you some background of Mark. As we said, he's a 62-year-old retiree with $1.1 million savings. And I say congratulations to you, Mark, for being a millionaire. He has $2,800 monthly from Social Security income. As I said, 62 years old, 1.1 in his 401k and his IRA. And the Social Security that he collects is $2,800 a month, which is about $33,000 a year. So Mark has really asked us, what does a retirement budget actually look like? He's watched our videos. He's analyzed different things. He says he's learned a lot from our channel. Thank you, Mark. And he just kind of come back and said, help me here with my budget, with everything through. So we kind of just in an interview over the phone and through a few emails and different stuff, we talked to Mark and we came up with this. We wanted to define the retirement income goal that he actually had. And retirement planning begins not with investment returns, but with cash flow. The most critical step is defining how much income you need each month. And it's funny how many people I talk to that don't quite understand this. They're always looking at yield, yield, yield. And I'm like, it's not yield. It's about your cash flow. How much cash do you have coming in? How much do you have going out? And then it's a simple math project. So he has looked at many of our videos and he's come back and says, okay, I have targeted right now about $6,000 a month or $72,000 a year. And the gap analysis that we did is that $72,000 coming in, he got Social Security of $33,600. Basically he needs $38,400 a year or $3,200 a month to cover his needs. I'm like, okay, this is how, Mark, you've shown it, you've done it. This is what we got to figure out, how to get $3,200 a month from your 1.1 million into a cash flow. So always what I wanted to do is verify to make sure he had his retirement budget and requirements taken care of. And this is really where we come into and I say, this is your cost of living. What's your housing and utilities cost? What's your food and groceries? What's your insurance and your health care? And I'm looking at healthcare, dental, vision, long-term care, Medicare premiums. Remember, Medicare is not free. You have to figure this out ahead of time. We also have to figure out what your travel and lifestyle is going to be. Vacations, hobbies, dining out, entertainment. And I'm going to put a special note on this one because I know Mark was very hesitant in the travel and lifestyle side of it. He every time I brought this up to him, he was always hesitant in saying, "Well, I like the golf, but I like the travel, and I like dining out, but I control that very much." And I'm like, "You're probably light on this one, but we worked it out." And then one that he didn't catch on to, I says, "Your taxes and your reserves. You need federal and state income taxes. You need capital gains taxes. And then I tell you have to have an emergency savings account. And then on top of that, you got financial discipline. You got to control your withdrawals, align your expenses with your income, and adapt to market fluctuations." And I think this is the area that he was actually asking for, was the financial discipline, saying, where am I at? What can I do? Because everything else he had pretty much all in place. So again, when we sat down and did the budget and the implementation of it, I said, you have $2,800 Social Security, pretty much a fixed income. The idea of it is to set up to it. Nothing's ever guaranteed in life. And then your portfolio income would have to generate about $3,200 to make your $6,000 total budget. And he was concerned that, $3,200, can I get something without getting really risky and secured? And he had a bunch of different funds that he talked about. So we said, look, we want a balanced approach. We want sustainable control, and we want flexibility, because if the market change, if different things happen, we want to be able to stay on top of it. So the portfolio structure strategy, he came up with a few of these names from different videos that we've done. He says, I've watched these, I've checked into them. He's done his research behind it. And I said, this is perfectly fine that we can do this with you with the portfolio that you're talking about. So we basically sat down and laid this out, a hypothetical layout of what you would do. And I said, look, you take 40% into SPYI. And the reason for that is you have the tax backing behind it. You have the Section 1256 contracts. I said it's going to help your tax burden down the road. You're going to have QQQI, which gives you the NASDAQ 100 coverage. So he was into the S&P 500, the NASDAQ 100. That was more of an income play, giving that 14.39% distribution average. And then he came in and shocked me a little bit. He was already on top of this. He had the Russell 2000. I said, okay, we're going to put 40% SPYI, 35% into QQQI, 25% into IWMY, if these are the funds that you're operating with. This gives a nice blended large cap stability with tech growth. It generates monthly income through those option strategies and reduces the reliance on any single income source. So we have three very good income sources, all in the teen section. I won't and never will use the word safe, but there's some good history behind each and every one of these. So with that allocation, I'll break it down a little bit more. The reason for what we did. SPYI gives us a large cap stability and that consistency that we're looking for. It has that continuous monthly distributions potential across the board and giving a fair 12.48 distribution rate. Now remember, we're not chasing yield. We are actually a total return application. So in this scenario, I would bring up and say, look, your total return is this certain amount, and majority of that 12% is really, and the return comes from the distribution. And SPYI has that tax advantages. Then we switched over to QQQI, and it's that tech-driven growth and income side with that upside participation in the tech giants. This one here has a little bit larger distribution rate, but it also had a nice larger growth package on top of it. And then IWMY, the Russell 2000, is an aggressive of the small cap index. It's a higher potential yield. It brings a little bit higher risk, and it gives that bigger distribution. While the delivery is the highest potential among the three, with the 85% of the distributions classified as return of capital, I put the smallest amount into that fund because to me, I think it's the riskiest fund of the three that he chose. So I went with safety, security in a 40%er that is helping with the tech side of it, 35% as the backup to the NASDAQ. So that's 75% of your fund working accordingly, and 25% into his Russell 2000. So when you do the math of this structure, the income projection analysis comes up with a hybrid between a 9 to 10% of his $1.1 million. Now, why do I use a 9 to 10%? Is because the numbers fluctuate. They're constantly fluctuating up and down. So I felt if we gave him a budget closer to that 9 or 10%, he would actually be more comfortable with the total package. The blending yield between 9 to 10 would give him an estimated $99,000 of annual income. Now, I know everyone out there is going to sit down with their calculator and say, you're off, you're wrong. It'd be $110,000 at 10%. If he's getting 12, he's going to get more. But here's the point that I showed him. If we're going to get more, great. That is all money that we're keeping on the sidelines for the security. We're building a cash nest egg. We're continuously building a nest egg. What I'm looking for, and what the original question was, is can Mark get an annual budget? And at 99,000, this is a great number to work with, because if the market comes down, we can lose a couple percentage points in the yield. So at 99,000, his average would come into $8,250. Now he's only requiring $38,400 total, or $3,200 a month. So realistically, he's got an already extra $5,000 a month of income unspoken for. Okay, so when you look at the numbers, everything matches fairly smooth with what he's talking about. So the 38,000 that he needs, he's getting 99 with a reduced package. The ETFs that he chose are all above my 9 to 10% blended yield. Okay, so he is actually better off than what I'm actually projecting him to be. And he liked that. And it's kind of like of what we call under budgeting. Okay, so even under budgeting, we're still $5,000 over his needs. So it opens the door up for him to travel more, eat out more, to do what he wants to do. Now, I threw this to him because he come to me with just three. And I said, well, first off, I want you to do one more thing for me. And I suggested him, and I throw it to you, is a 3-bucket system for his investments. Bucket A, stable bucket. This protects your capital and smooths out your income. The foundation of the system, and it's a lower risk, more stability in a fund. Your income optimization, which is about what you're talking about, which is very common I run into, is balanced income with sustainability and mid to high distribution rates. And I don't think he needed this program, but I suggested it anyways, is what I call high risk income. If you need to boost your cash flow intentionally, you want some high distribution rates or higher risk, higher volatility pieces, you can definitely have a third bucket that is for that factor. But Mark has done so well with his money. I really told him, I says, I think if you sat down and filled bucket 1 and bucket A and bucket B, I think you would be perfectly fine and work well. And with all this, I suggested he talk to a financial advisor because I told him up front, I'm not a financial advisor. I just have done this for years and retired early and been retired for 10 years. I said, and this is the system that I've used. And he liked the idea and he was open to it. And when he made the asking what suggestions what we had, and I just gave him some examples. I said, you go do your research. You do very good at that. Don't be afraid to ask questions. If you have a Charles Schwab or a Fidelity, I said they have some free consultations you can talk to. And I gave him this. I said there's a PFF, iShares Preferred Income Securities, and the total return is about 6.73. Most of it's coming from yield. So that would, again, increase your income. But what I would do with this one is drip it. I would just roll your dividends back into the fund to just continuously grow this fund. LQD, the iShares Broad U.S. Investment Grade Corporate Bond Fund. This is more of that security and safe side of things. A total return of 8.64%, the yield of 4.47%. Another one, I told him just roll it, drip it into the fund. And then we have the Invesco S&P 500, which he asked me right off. He said, well, I already have S&P 500. Why would I want this? Because Invesco uses the low volatility ETFs. These things are really, they're not exclusive to monthly payout funds. They emphasize on the low volatility of stocks for smoother performance. It pays monthly dividends, but the total return of 7.12% is a strong number because it's built for growth. All of this is built to continue to grow your portfolio. Will you ever need it? Probably not. But the goal of this is to continue to grow, to give you even more security and a safe foundation across the board. Now, I also suggested you could possibly put some gold and silver pieces into this as well. But this is a core piece that starts the whole stability and focus of your foundation of your income strategy. So the risk management is why I said why your funds right now are Bs. This is your risk management. Option-based ETFs like SPYI, the QQQI, and the IWMY carry risk. The NAV erosion is a very serious piece, and you have to keep an eye on to that. The income variable, okay? Your income could come up and down, flexibility. That's why we start with tier A products, that we just have a smooth total package. Market sensitivity. Small cap funds like the IWMY are particularly sensitive to market cycles with daily changes. So always be concerned of that. And then IWMY's return of capital. Well, if you have return of capital, you've actually built yourself there with the potential of that NAV erosion that we're worried about, that we're losing our principal. That's why the tier A fits into, in case this happens, you have 3 funds that are producing more growth to help fix your income stream. So intelligent retirement strategy is success comes from balance. The balance approach. Instead of chasing high yields, which I had a feeling he was trying to chase yields, but I come back and said, look, if you're not saying you're chasing yields, you're kind of looking at things that are yields. So you want some guaranteed income. Your Social Security fits well. Annuities are there, but I'm not a big fan of annuities, and we should do another video on that one. But really, your security is Social Security is that guaranteed income. Your diversified portfolio. When you put in the tier A and the tier Bs, I believe you're going to have a very strong diversified portfolio with the proper balance allocations and income-focused ETFs. And if you're disciplined with your withdrawals, control your withdrawals, use the dynamic strategy. Basically, you're always a month, I call it a month behind. And it makes things so much smoother and easier for him. And he understood it. He understood it completely. He did not plan on tier A, but he says, I get it. I understand why, and moved on. So the key takeaways that we had from this, the past questions, can I retire? Mark, you can retire with no problem. How do I retire intelligently? Well, you've already started the process. You know what your cost of livings are. You know what your cost to live and what your retirement costs are. Now you know how much money you have, and we back into the number for you. You build a stable foundation, you have flexible growth, and you control your withdrawals, and you are very intelligent across the board. Intelligent is not about maximizing your returns. It's about minimizing your risk. So managing longevity and managing control over your financial future is the plan and is the goal across the board. So guys, let me know what you think about Mark and about Mark's plan that we put together for him. I didn't use the funds. It's not a portfolio saying copy this, do this portfolio. It's not recommendations in any way. It's what Mark brought to the table, and it's how I suggested a system versus just buying funds. Let me know your thoughts and leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you because everyone's going to run into this hopefully someday that they're going to run into. Can I retire? How do I retire? And what can I spend? Let me know your thoughts. I appreciate it. And we'll catch you on the next channel.